My world at some point was indoors, under LED or neon lighting, coming home at 4 in the morning, slowly watching our habitat, our wildlife degrade, and how wasteful the industry is, and felt like I might be part of the problem. And that was the turning point for me.
Have you ever felt burned out or wanted to quit your job? Or at least wished you had more time to do the things that make you happy? In this episode, one of the owners of Cosmic Coffee and Beer Garden tells us how he found a way to merge his career with his passions and rebuild his connection to the earth around him.
I'm a native Austinite. I worked in hospitality for decades. I think it was a trip to Taos, New Mexico, and my fiance at the time and I stayed in the Earth ships near Taos. And I totally fell in love with that concept and that culture, these regenerative systems and this living off the grid. And I kind of went back to, working in hospitality and really got kind of upset at how wasteful the industry is and slowly watching our habitat, our wildlife degrade, and felt like I might be part of the problem. And that led to kind of marrying the two hemispheres of my brain, that hemisphere that had worked in hospitality for so long, and then this new energy in trying to create these sustainable systems and rebuild wildlife habitats. So Cosmic was the genesis of that kind of conflict.
Paul was super excited about these ideas he was coming into. And I was running a landscaping business at the same time and was super into permaculture and was really excited about it. So we buddied up and he really ran with it and took all those design methods to heart.
So what we've done here is we've created this space that we think is beautiful to be in and be around, but also without getting too preachy or too intense about it, we have created a lot of systems here that give back to habitat and minimize our waste. We've been able to create that culture around here. If you kind of talk to our staff, we've hired a lot of people who kind of have gone through that same path where they don't want to be in bars or cafes inside all day. They want to be around nature, but they still want to make a living in hospitality. And there's some authenticity to what we do here.
The one thing that I like the most is the noise of the waterfalls, the birds and all that. Makes you forget that we are right next to a main avenue, one of the main avenues in Austin. You feel like you're in this oasis, in touch with nature, even if you are in the middle of the city. Working with the plants will make you be connected with bigger things. Nowadays, I notice the change in the pattern of the sun, the birds that come in the season, the butterflies that come in season. And it's some things that I'm not really paying attention when I'm gardening, really, but that it's a side effect of that. And it's very cool to feel that connected with the surrounding.
It's a coffee shop and a bar, so there's a whole other side of it, which is it's static and you don't want it to change too much. But it's really gratifying that the surroundings are always kind of evolving, and just being able to finish a project at the end of the day and be hey, look at all this progress I made is a nice break up from just the monotony of the service industry kind of grind,
Cosmic is built on the foundations of permaculture, which is defined as the development of ecosystems intended to be sustainable and self-sufficient. One of the unique ways they support their ecosystem is through on-site composting.
A new garden, like a newborn, is unestablished, doesn't have any infrastructure. It's going to struggle. It doesn't know how to feed itself. Once it's established, a few seasons in, then it starts to develop those natural defenses against predators, insects, fungi, diseases, that kind of stuff. One of the techniques we've learned to expedite that process, to go from infancy to established, is to really dump in a lot of organic nutrients via compost. So what we do is we take all of our green waste, our spent coffee grounds, tea leaves, weeds, dead produce, all that stuff goes into the system, and I'll walk you through here, and we generate literally tons of spectacular rich compost that we put back into the gardens. And over time, everything is thriving better and it's natural. So we don't have to use pesticides, herbicides, that kind of stuff, because we're letting nature do its natural thing. We call it black gold around here. It is a beautiful, stinky, nutrient-rich finished product. And so all of this would have gone into the landfill. And this is our garden waste, our food waste, our harvested chicken bedding. That stuff is fantastic for a really rich, biodynamic product.
Just trying to eliminate waste out of your stream is great. So just, if you can figure out a way to like get paper incorporated into your compost pile where normally you'd be sending it to a recycler, like there's just small steps you can do where it's like simplify and use these streams that just exist in modern life and like put them to use.
The other thing that's really fun for us to do is to create habitat. And what we noticed here, this land when we moved in was barren and overrun by rats and roaches and mosquitoes, and it was not biodynamic. Over time, we've brought in, through creating the habitat, native planting, water, shelter, food. We now have amphibians that have moved into our ponds, tons of songbird species, and that has naturally driven out the rats and the roaches and the mosquitoes, because those species, those pioneer species, don't want to compete. So now that there's competition and biodynamics going on, you have the species that you want and not the ones that you don't want, within reason.
In 2023, Cosmic opened their second location in a building that was formerly used by the Texas Oil Company for fuel storage. They transformed an abandoned building into an urban oasis, creating a surprising connection to nature in an unusual place.
Cosmic isn't going to work like in a strip mall. So our second location, Cosmic Saltillo, was perfect. It's two old warehouse buildings that were the original Texas Oil Company before it was changed to Texaco. And it was actually right on the train track, so it was a depot for petroleum to come off the train. The beautiful part of that project was it was abandoned and wild. The challenge for us was, this is an acre that we're sitting on here. This is really easy to grow and create gardens. Once you get into a tighter space, it's a little bit more challenging. So you'll see we went vertical with our gardens. We've built a massive trellis that we hope over the next year or two will create a canopy of vines, different species that'll cover the whole courtyard. But we've also allowed nature to kind of take over. So it has that kind of post-apocalyptic feel to it a little bit, where it looks like nature has taken over in an industrial setting. And that was very intentional and part of our design.
Yeah, the plant palette here I think is a little bit unique. It's a really good representation of what Austin can do. Austin is a really flexible climate. So there's a big group of native plants that I would say is the kind of the foundation of this plant palette. But there's also a big group of adapted plants that play well with the natives. So selecting specific species that would attract wildlife, but yet still be verdant enough to be in a kind of a commercial setting like this. So all of these pieces that you see that we're kind of set up on in the entry path were 100% recycled. And it's 30 tons worth of concrete that would have normally just gone straight into the landfill. And the fact that we were able to create usable paths for it and it blends so well with kind of the nature of the site is worked out really well. The ownership's commitment to this sustainable idea, both in the architecture and the way the landscape was built, is unique and should be commended. They did a tremendous job and put together a great design team that was fully supported throughout, making decisions that would allow it to feel so kind of homey and verdant and like a little bit of an oasis in kind of in the middle of downtown Austin.
It was so neat because it just felt like old Austin, and so it was inspirational to use all recycled kind of elements in the garden. And Paul always wants that connection to water and plants. We used a lot of salvaged material. Billy found an old gravel crusher in Marfa, and then we used an old plumbing pipe for the source of the water. And of course, we left a lot of the ruins. It was a fun collaboration with all of us.
Our mantra moving forward for future locations is we have this nature element, but we very much want to accommodate what already is existing. So we'll adapt our design to what's already in place. I've watched People in this realm, this sustainability realm, burn out because they try to do too much, and it can get daunting, and it's a lot of work, and it's expensive, it can be. So try to find that low-hanging fruit. And that could be habitat creation, could be composting, could be biological ponds, but that would be my statement to other people that want to make an impact is don't try to be perfect and find what's fun for you and build on that. Don't try to do it all, and do what is fun for you and that you are drawn to. It's a great lesson in permaculture is use the power of nature. As much as we want to wrangle it and control it, you can't. And you might have this fantastic design or idea. Nature wants to do something different. Don't fight it, work with it. It's a great lesson.